Hey everyone, this is our last day together and it is Dino Day! Oh, I love dinosaurs. Now, have you ever been to like a dinosaur exhibit at a museum or an amusement park? You know, sometimes they might even be called a prehistoric exhibit or a prehistoric walk through the past or something like that.
Right, like prehistoric land. Well, if we put on our Bible glasses, we know there's really not any prehistoric millions of years ago time like that, because time began at the beginning when God made Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. So the word prehistoric, prehistory, really isn't true, right, Mr. Matt?
No.
All right. So let's move on to what we're going to do today for our main activity. It's a really fun one.
That's right, it's Dino Day, so we have to do something that is dynamite, and we are going to play a dino-rific trivia game. So all you need for this game is a dino dice. So you might have a dice laying around your house. You can actually get as many as you want because the rules are really up to you. Now, the best way to play this game is to play it in 2 teams. And so if there's more than one of you watching this video together, go ahead and divide up into 2 teams. Now, if you're watching this by yourself, maybe you have a friend that you know is also watching this at their house and they're playing by themselves. Maybe you just want to count up your score and then later you can call them and talk to them and see who got the most points. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to ask you the trivia questions, and if you get them right, you get to roll your 1 dice or your 2 dice or your 50 dice, however many you guys decide as a team how many you're going to roll, and then add up those as the points that you get, and we'll see who gets the most points at the end.
But remember, if you do a lot of dice, you better like math because you'll have a lot of adding to do.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I love math.
You
so
love it, so you'd probably love 50
I
dice.
want a whole pile of
but
dice.
you need at least 1. All right, so here we go.
Question number 1. On what day were the land dinosaurs created? All right, think about it. You've got multiple choice. You could pick either day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So what do you think? Did you say day 6? Absolutely. We know that all the land animals were created on day 6.
Okay, hopefully you went ahead and rolled your dice, wrote down how many points you got. Now we're on to question number 2. How do we know that dinosaurs weren't created millions of years ago? What do you think? Did you say something like, well, the Bible tells us that they were created during creation week, right? It has to line up with the Bible. And you could have also said that we know that those dating methods are many times flawed, right? And science sometimes realizes that they're not right. We're thankful for science, but sometimes we realize that they aren't sure, and the Bible is always right. Something along those lines. If you said something like that, go ahead and roll the dice.
Are you ready for question number 3? Approximately how long ago was it when the dinosaurs were created? Let me give you multiple choice. Do you think it's A, 10 million years ago, B, 100,000 years ago, or C, about 6,000 years ago? A, B, or C? Did you say C, about 6,000 years ago? You know, if we carefully study the dates in the Bible and use things like the genealogies and everything that God has given us in His Word, we can see that God created the world about 4,000 years before Jesus came. And it's been about 2,000 years since Jesus came. We know that. And so when we add those numbers together, 4,000 plus 2,000, right around 6,000 years. So if you said C, go ahead, roll the dice, and add those to your points.
Okay, on to question number 4. Yes or no? Did the dinosaurs live at the same time as man? You should have said yes. We know they were made on the land. Dinosaurs were made on day 6. And what day was man made? Day 6. So they would have been there at the same time. This is before sin, though, so it wouldn't have been a problem for them to be together. So if you said yes, go ahead and roll the dice and add your points.
Question number 5. What is another reason we know dinosaurs could not have lived and died long before man came about? Do you think it's A, science textbooks say so, B, dinosaurs would have been lonely without man, or C, there was no death before Adam sinned, so nothing could have died before Adam came along? So A, B, or C, say what you think is the right answer. And I hope you said C, because C is the right answer. You see, death and suffering, that didn't come until after sin. And so you couldn't have had these land dinosaurs or any type of plant or animal that would have been around for millions of years and they would have died and all of that stuff, because we know that death is a result of sin, and sin did not happen until Adam and Eve disobeyed God in the garden. So the answer is C, there was no death before there was sin.
On to our next question, question 6. How do we know dinosaurs really existed? A, we've seen pictures of them in books. B, fossil bones of dinosaurs are found all over the world. Or C, we don't know. Okay, did you say B, fossil bones of dinosaurs are found all over the world? In fact, they're found on all 7 continents. Now, sometimes it's just a bone here, a bone there. Sometimes it's almost complete skeletons that we find. So nobody really doubts that dinosaurs did exist. We just kind of differ on when they started living, okay? Because, you know, they didn't come with tags that said, I was created at this time, right? We don't know when we dig it up how old that bone is. But we do know that those dating methods are flawed, and we do know what God's word says, and that settles it.
Question number 7. What does the word fossil mean? Is it A, something that was alive, which is now turned hard like rock, B, a kind of watch, or C, a broken bone? What does fossil mean? Did you say A, something that was alive, but now it's turned into something hard like a rock? You know, these bones of once living creatures, of dinosaurs, they turn very hard, and now they can be studied and they can be observed. And so there are certain things we can't really observe, like when they were around, and we can't know those things, but we can take that evidence that's in those fossils and we can observe those things.
So if you got that right, make sure you roll and add those points into your total. All right, on to question 8. Yes or no? Has every dinosaur bone ever found been fossilized? Do you think that's yes or no? Are they all fossils?
That's a tough one.
You should have said no, because we found some that have soft parts and red blood cells in them. Red blood cells are mostly water, and they could not have stayed that way for millions of years. So we know they have to be more recent.
All right, so if you got that one right, roll, count up your points, and let's move on to question number 9. What did the dinosaurs look like? Do you think it's A, they were all massive giants, B, they had green or brown rough skin, or C, we don't know for sure? What do you think? The answer is C, we don't know for sure. Because the bones, or the nearly full skeletons that we found, along with some of the fossilized skin impressions of the dinosaurs, and even like dinosaur droppings, dinosaur eggs, and all these other parts, well, this helps us make educated guesses, but we can't know exactly sure what they looked like. Okay, we can't know what color they were or anything like that. We can guess, but we'll never know for sure. So you should have said C, we don't know for sure. If you got that right, roll and count your points.
Okay, we're on to question 10. Yes or no? Does God tell us when he made T-Rex? We all love T-Rex.
He's cool.
He's so cool. So, yeah, that impression. All right, you should have said, yes. We know T-Rex was a land dinosaur, and land dinosaurs were made on what day? Day 6. So if you said yes, go ahead and roll and add up those points.
Question number 11 is a yes or no question. In addition to the Bible, is there any evidence that dinosaurs lived with people? Is there a way for us to know, other than what we've read in the book of Genesis, that man and dinosaurs lived together? The answer is yes. This is what's amazing. There are so many drawings of dinosaurs on cave walls that have been preserved over many years. People who lived would have seen these dinosaurs, and it's just amazing to think that they went and drew these on cave walls. Well, if dinosaurs weren't around, how would man have drawn pictures of them? You know, it just, if they didn't know they existed, why would we find all these different pictures of man drawing dinosaurs? Now, they couldn't go to a book, they couldn't go to a museum or anything like that, like you and I can today, to know what one looked like, so they must have seen it. Many other dinosaur images from thousands of years ago have been found as well on such things as pottery and stone carving. So man for thousands of years has been drawing pictures of dinosaurs. So it shows that dinosaurs and man must have lived together. That is how they knew what they looked like in order to draw them. So you got that one? Roll and count your points.
Yeah, we know that they didn't have pictures. They didn't have cameras back then.
Yeah.
They didn't have cell phones. So they had to have seen them. On to question 12. Yes or no, could specific dinosaurs possibly be mentioned in the Bible?
Ooh, good question.
Isn't that interesting? You should have said yes. Now, the word dinosaur is not actually in the Bible because that word was not invented until 1841. But there are descriptions in the Bible that sound very much like dinosaurs. If you have your Bible, you can even open with me to the book of Job. We find in Job 40 a description of an animal called a behemoth. And if you read this whole thing, I'm not going to read it all, but if you read it, it sounds very much like a land dinosaur. Now let me just tell you just a little bit about it. Behold, behemoth, that's in verse 15, okay? It says his power is in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. That means a cedar tree. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are like tubes of bronze. His limbs are like bars of iron. He's first in the works of God. It goes on and talks more about him. Now, a cedar tree is a very big tree, very, very strong, okay? Some Bibles in their little footnotes would say something like, oh, well, maybe this behemoth is describing a hippo or a crocodile. But think about it. Does a hippo, the tail of a hippo, that little tiny thing, is that like a cedar tree?
Not at all.
I don't think so, okay? Or even a crocodile. It has a bigger tail, but it's still not that big. Not like a dinosaur. It doesn't have tubes of bronze, okay? This sounds like a huge animal first in the works of God.
Yes.
First, I think dinosaurs would be considered the biggest first animals, right? Okay, so that's about behemoth. Now, if you flip on over in verse 41, it describes another animal that sounds like a sea dinosaur, right? And we found some remnants of stuff like this in the sea. All right, and it talks about this one called Leviathan. It says, can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook or press down his tongue with a cord? They're basically saying you can't because he's too big. Can you put a rope in his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Okay. And it goes on and tells you all these different things. It says, can you fill his skin with harpoons? Like they're trying to hunt him and kill him, but they can't get him. Or with fishing spears. Lay your hands on him and you will remember the battle. You will not again. That's what it says right here. Okay? It even talks farther down in here how he even breathes fire. Okay? So this sounds very much like a very mighty sea creature, a sea dinosaur called Leviathan. Now, also, we want to remember that the book of Job was not written millions of years ago.
Not at all.
So this is thousands of years ago, and they are describing this animal they've seen with their own eyes, which again means man saw these dinosaurs.
Absolutely.
So if you think you got that right, go ahead and roll and add up your points.
And let's move on to question 13. What does the word dinosaur mean? Do you think it's A, mighty one, B, terrible lizard, or C, fearful animal? A, B, or C? The answer is B. It's a terrible lizard. Now, Miss Barb said that the word dinosaur, it wasn't even invented until 1841. And it was invented by this scientist named Sir Richard Owen. And he was looking at the bones of some dinosaurs, and he realized that these are a very different type of reptile that had ever been studied before. And so he came up with this name, dinosaur, where dino means terrible, and saurus means lizard. So dinosaur, terrible lizard. So there you go. If you guessed terrible lizard, go ahead and roll and add up your points.
Okay, on to our next question. It's a yes or no. Are large sea creatures technically considered dinosaurs?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's a tough one. You might get this wrong. It's actually no. Technically, just the large land ones like T-Rex, okay, that would be considered, or behemoth, that would be considered a dinosaur. But people pretty much lump the idea of the big sea creatures like Leviathan or the flying reptiles, okay,
Yes.
something like maybe a
Pterodactyl.
pterodactyl. They pretty much lump that into the idea of a dinosaur too. But if you want to be really technical, it would be the land ones.
All right. Question number 15. Before Adam and Eve sinned, what did the dinosaurs eat? Do you think it's A, plants, B, meat, or C, plants and meat? A, B, or C? Well, the correct answer is A. They ate just plants. Because before Adam and Eve sinned, there was no death and everybody got along, and all of the creatures, Adam and Eve, you know, the first man and woman, all of the animals that God made there, whether they were birds or land animals or even sea animals, well, they wouldn't have eaten other animals, okay, which is where we get our meat from. So we know that before Adam and Eve sinned, all the animals, and even Adam and Eve, which are not animals, they're made in God's image, they would have all eaten plants. So I hope you got that right. If you did, roll and add your points.
It's pretty cool. We know in Genesis 9, God does then give us the command that we are allowed to eat meat if we want to. But back at the beginning, it was just plants. Okay, let's go on to our next question. Approximately how many dinosaur kinds are there? A, 7, B, 50, or C, 1,000? Okay, so if you said B, 50, you would be right. The Bible tells us over and over that God made things according to their kind. So there were probably about 50 different dinosaur kinds, and you can look at this poster and you can see just some of them. It's really, really cool.
Question number 17 is this. Why don't we find dinosaurs alive today? Do you think it's A, they were hit with meteors and died out? B, they got hay fever from the plants and died out? Or C, they gradually died out after the flood of Noah's day? A, B, or C? Think about it. The answer is C. they gradually died out after the flood. So many animals become extinct over time because, conditions change and they can no longer support their lifestyle. So this happened to the dinosaurs too. So when they came off the ark, the world was very different. It would have been colder, it could have been harsher. There would have also been things like diseases, that could have killed some of these animals. There wouldn't have been that much food for them to eat. Plus, they would be getting hunted either by other animals because they're eating meat and stuff like that, or even people could be hunting these animals, which kind of reminds me, my favorite dinosaur to eat, if I were to eat a dinosaur, would be a Stegosaurus. Anyway, but, so all of these factors would have come into the dinosaurs becoming extinct. It wouldn't have needed to be a big meteor or a big catastrophic event like that, or some sort of like alien abduction of all the dinosaurs. Sadly, they just would have died over time because the world had changed.
Right. So if you got that right, go ahead and roll the dice and add your points in. And then we're going to move on to the next question. Okay, this one is a yes or no. Did dinosaurs evolve into birds before they died off? We know they did go extinct, but did they turn into birds before they did? Okay, you should have said no. No. Now, scientists have found this discovery called Archaeopteryx that they say is part dinosaur and part bird. But we know this cannot be true because we know God created each thing on a different day. They call this the missing link, but there's no such thing as a missing link. We know that there might be some commonalities, as we've talked about before, between some different animals, even a dinosaur and a bird, because we have a common designer, God. But they are not evolving from one to another. Now, we have since discovered that Archaeopteryx is really just a bird, okay? Now, they'll sometimes say, oh, well, I found a dinosaur that's got feathers. Well, they've also discovered those feathers are really just woven skin.
Oh.
But you know what? Even if we found a dinosaur that had feathers, that's okay. That just means God made that dinosaur with feathers.
Exactly.
Right? So, and here's one more thing. What day was it that birds were made? Day 5. What day was it that land dinosaurs were made?
I know. Day 6.
Day 6. So there's no way a dinosaur could turn into a bird because birds were made before dinosaurs.
There you go.
All right, so if you got that right, go ahead and roll and add your points.
On to question number 19. What is the average size of a dinosaur? So what would be like the most normal size of a dinosaur? Do you think it's A, about the size of a sheep, B, about the size of a lion, or C, about the size of an elephant? A, B, or C? What do you think? The answer is A.
Wow.
Surprisingly, it's about the size of a sheep. Some dinosaurs, well, they weren't very big at all. They were as small as about a chicken, okay? And they're not that huge. We often think of these great big dinosaurs, and there definitely were some, but there were a lot that were very small as well. And we think about this, how important it is when we think about how God took 2 of each kind onto Noah's Ark. Well, he would have taken 2 of these smaller kind of dinosaurs. And so it makes sense that they would be able to fit on the ark because they're not always these giant beasts that we think of, right? Because there were so many different kinds. And the other thing is, of those really big kinds and how they could have got them on the ark, well, it doesn't say that they had to be grown-ups.
That's right.
Could have taken baby dinosaurs above
right.
onto the ark as
I bet
well.
They did.
Absolutely.
All right, so if you got that right, roll the dice. Okay, on to our last question, and here it is. How big were the biggest dinosaur eggs? Was it A, approximately a little bigger than a tennis ball, B, approximately a little bigger than a football, or C, approximately a little bigger than a beach ball? Right, did you say B, a little bigger than a football. So this is also important when we're thinking about bringing those dinosaurs onto the ark. Okay, so go ahead and roll and add up those points. And then what you're going to want to do is find out which team got the most points.
That's right.
Who won, okay? But while you're doing that, let me just remind you, dinosaurs are such a cool creation of God. Every single animal is, every single plant, every single star, every single everything, and especially people. We are very dearly loved by God, so much so that he sent his only son for us. So it's been fun to check out all this stuff in IncrediWorld, and just remember that if the Bible says it, that settles it. Here we are on day 5's Now What segment, and this question's a fun one to start you off with. Here it is. Let's pretend you could go somewhere to see real dinosaurs. Which ones would you most want to see and why? Pause for a second and talk about that. We've used one word this week a lot to describe God, and it's incredible. But if you had to finish this sentence, what word would you put in? God is... Right, and as we wrap it up, again, let's talk about what did I learn about God today and maybe during the whole week, about who God is and about what God has done or is doing. That's a big one. Today, I might say, I learned God is really powerful. He can make these big, powerful dinosaurs. He could make anything. He's so powerful. What other ways have I even seen God be powerful in the Bible? What other ways have I seen God be powerful in my life? Okay, and our awesome activity for today is, first of all, read Job 40, starting at verse 15, and read all the way through chapter 41. It's a fantastic description of Behemoth and Leviathan. And then I want you to act out. What would it have been like to be in the Garden of Eden before sin, when there was man and dinosaurs? What would those dinosaurs have been like, do you think? You'll have to be those dinosaurs, okay? And then let's do it after sin came into the world, maybe even after the flood. Ooh, how would things have changed? Act that out. What would it be like between man and dinosaurs at that point? And with all of this, after you do that, I just want to leave you with this thought. Remember that God is incredible.